Yes, I am your host. So incredibly excited for our guest today because I have none other than Bob Burg with me today. Author, just sales expert, whatever you want to call it, Bob. Just thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. You're very kind, Damon. Great to be with you.
Yes. Now I'm going to run down a few things here, and I know you hear this a lot, but Bob has authored many books. I'll just say many because it's more than several. Starting out, I believe, with endless referrals, and you went into the Go Giver series. Beyond that, your keynote speaking, you've been doing that for a number of years, and you're talking about things like accelerating sales, shifting your sales teams from price to value, and you really have taught people how to change their approach at how they interact with people because you started out in networking, I believe. And I just thanks so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for that nice introduction.
Well, Bob, let's start back a little ways if we can and tell the people are listening to myself. I'm curious as to, you started out, wrote the book Endless Referrals, but start a little bit before that. What really got you into thinking about referrals, thinking about network, and then we'll go on after that.
Well, after a very mediocre couple of years in broadcasting, I graduated into sales and realized I knew nothing about sales. So I really stumbled around for a few months. One day I was in a bookstore, not really even sure what I was looking for. This is 40 years ago. And at that time, sales books and those kinds of just weren't known to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
But I came across two books. One was by Zig Ziglar and the other was by Tom Hopkins, two of the true icons in the sales space. Yeah. And I got their books and I began to not only study them, but really devour them. And I learned a methodology for selling, which was, really based on creating immense value for others. And what it showed me and what was encouraging about it was the fact that it was a system that anyone could use, right? And I personally, Damon, define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles, the key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then you know that all you need to do is A and continue to do A. And eventually you're going to get the desired results of B. And that's what it taught me. And my sales in a very quick period of time began to go through the roof, only because now I had a methodology. I kind of knew what I was doing at this point, right? But this also showed me I had a lot more to learn, and I just ate up sales and loved it. And the best part, though, was the personal development aspect, because both of those authors and every author I would read after that would talk about listening to, back then it was tapes, right? And so I was going but getting books on personal development, such as How to Win Friends and Influence People and Think and Grow Rich and Psycho-Cybernetics and just wonderful, Ogmandino's books. And it was just such a great experience. And what I really began to learn is that success was an inside job. You had to build yourself on the inside. Success would manifest outwardly, but it got built on the inside. And we are responsible for doing that. So that it was just, a lot of fun. And eventually I started learning ways to create relationships, and that turned into studying networking, and which, again, networking has that, comes with a kind of a preconceived notion. So many people think of networking as that fast walking, slick talking sales guy who glad hands and backhands and slaps hands and shakes hands and sticks a business card aggressively into people's says, "Hey, give me a call, cut you a deal," when that's not networking at all. By my definition of networking anyway, it's simply the cultivating of mutually beneficial give and receive win-win relationships, the focus being on the giving of value to others. So you approach any kind of networking relationship first is just that, the beginnings of a relationship. And you do this through communicating value right away to that other person.
And that is what I love about your whole philosophy and your process, as you said. It starts by providing value. So when endless referrals, you wrote that book, and then what inspired you really to write The Go Giver?
So endless referrals was really that was a system for
Mhm.
people who were entrepreneurs and salespeople who knew they had a great product, a great service. They knew it brought magnificent value to those they served, but they may not have felt comfortable going out into their local communities and building the kinds of relationships where people would want to do business with them directly and or refer them to others. So it was the how to build those relationships. It was based on a premise that I've been saying for 35 years or however long I've been doing this. And that is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And it was simply how to get from there. But it was a how-to book, and while those are fine, I've certainly learned from hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands,
Mhm.
of how-to books. I also knew that from reading business parables and always enjoying them, that parables, which of course are stories, always seem to connect on a much deeper level. And I think most of us intuitively understand that. Stories relate on a heart to heart level. And whenever I'd read a parable, I always felt connected with the author, with the characters, and with the lessons. I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take this basic know, like, and trust idea and turn it into a story? Well, I sat on that idea for a long time. But fortunately, I came across a guy by the name of John David Mann, who was the editor in chief of a magazine I was writing a monthly column for. And even back then, John was widely known within his circle of influence as a brilliant, magnificent writer and storyteller, and a great guy too. And so I shared with John this idea, for a book that I had. It was just very sketchy. I mean, there was really nothing there to it other than a title and some ideas of how it would develop. And he and his back then fiance, now his lovely wife Anna, they were visiting her mom in Tampa. I live in Jupiter, which is across the state,
Mhm.
just north of West Palm Beach, and they were visiting her mom in the Tampa area. They took a 4-hour ride one afternoon. We had about a 3-hour dinner, talked about the idea for the book and so forth. And he was still very busy, so he had to think about it. But they discussed it, and he called one day, said, "Yeah, I think we got something here. Let's do this thing." So, he was the lead writer. Believe me, this guy's a storyteller. I'm a how-to guy. I'm step by step. Step one, step two, step three.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant storyteller. But it took us about maybe 3 months to actually write the book because of John's brilliant writing. And then I think we were rejected by 24 New York publishers before the 25th one took a chance on us. And that's kind of how that got going.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting how the two of you combined were came together to make the parable that it is, and how, I mean, it reads so easily, and so it's so it does really connect deeply with you when
Thank
you
you.
read it.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
he was a great entrepreneur himself. He led a huge sales organization back in his day. So, it was really it was a really fun collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. So as you're going around and you're talking about the book with people, and you're speaking, what are some of the comments you get back from people that have read the book, put these things in practice, and really taken the Go Giver um, lifestyle to heart?
Well, one of the things we love to hear is when people say, I was doing all those things anyway when I read your book. The book itself just kind of told me I was on the right track, that I was doing it right, because a lot of people, and really the first adapters or adopters, I guess you'd say, of the book when it first came out, because we got all sorts of emails from people who were, big leaders and huge sales producers and all those people, and they said, this is what I've always done, and this is what I've told others that I've done, and nobody's believed me, right?
Hmm.
Because people grow up with that idea that you have to do well in sales, you have to be you're ruthless and
Yeah.
horrible, and right, as though
Yeah.
people really like to do business with people who are ruthless and horrible, and but and then the second wave of adopters were the people who wrote to us after they received the book from one of their mentors or
Okay.
sales leaders and so forth. So yeah, we always enjoy hearing that. Another thing we hear from a lot of people is that the fifth law, the law of receptivity, was the one they had the most trouble with, which of course
Yes.
it's how most people are. And that chapter kind of gave them permission for the first time to see receiving as something good, not as
Mhm.
something you have to try to deny, or that it's some necessary evil. That receiving's great when it's the result of providing immense value to others. This is why John David Mann and I in Go Givers Sell More, the follow-up, said that money is simply an echo of value, right? It's the
Mhm.
thunder to value's lightning, which means really nothing more than that the focus must be on the value you provide another human being, right? The value comes first. The money you receive is simply a natural result of the value you've provided.
Mhm. And that is so true. And you talk about the people having trouble with receiving. That was one of my most challenging things that I was reading through, and I realized that even more as I was reading the book. It's like it just always felt guilty about taking not taking but getting the money for
Yeah,
the value you provide. But when you look at it in the way you talk about it in the Go Giver, you realize it is just the fruits of the labor, and it's what you get.
exactly. Well, and look, you look at the negative messages. The world is absolutely filled with anti-prosperity messages. We get them
Yes.
from everywhere. People look down their nose at, prosperity and abundance and money and business. And oh, if you made a lot of money, you had to have done it on the backs of others or done something nefarious. I mean, we get these messages. My friend Randy Gage, who's one of the foremost authorities on prosperity and abundance thinking, he has this great vignette about how in every single movie, at least the big blockbuster ones, there are generally two types of people portrayed, right? There are the good people, the kind people who are usually also the poor people, and there's the struggling people, and but they're always honest and they're happy and they're poor and they're, all these, right? But these people are always being, then there's the other characters. They're always being, right, pushed down, pushed over, pushed aside, stepped on, stepped over, taken advantage of by who? The rich people, who are always
Yeah.
portrayed as evil and heartless and ruthless and horrible, and they have no soul. And you see this all the time. And he does just a beautiful vignette about it. But one of the great examples he gives is in the first Spider-Man movie, where um, Peter Parker is sitting on the couch with his Uncle Ben, and they're talking about, their financial
Hmm.
situation. And Uncle Ben says, "Well, Peter, we may be poor, but at least we're honest." And what a horrible, horrible message that is for some young teenage boy or girl to be hearing, right?
Hmm.
Because what does it tell you? I mean, the foundational premise of that statement is that if you're a good person and an honest person, you're in big trouble, bud. You're not
Yeah.
going anywhere. You're not making any money. You're gonna
Yeah.
be right. But if you have money, if you really, well, you must have done something wrong to get it. So you think, well, but it's just a movie. No, first of all, it's just about every movie, but it's
Hmm.
also the messages we get from everywhere, from schools, from social media, from politicians, and it's crazy. And so you think about it. So you grow up with these messages all the time, from your upbringing, environment,
Yeah.
schooling, news media, television shows, movies, all these places. And now you're in a position where you're adding immense value to the lives of lots and lots of people. And the money's coming toward you. But now, as this does, these old messages, these anti-prosperity, unconscious messages
Unconscious. Yeah.
are playing in your head. Well, what did I do to get them? I remember, if you've been brought up that one of your core values is honesty, right? And being a good person and being kind, well, what did I do for this to happen? Was I dishonest? And you're not thinking this consciously. This is all going on, underneath. Did I do something wrong? Have I stepped on people? Have I taken advantage of me? What are people going to think of me? What are right? And we
Yes.
sabotage. We push it away. Well, That's what we tried to bring about in law number 5 in that message. It was the 5th one. It was the last law. The other laws were all about the value you're giving and providing others and how you're doing it. But this one said, okay, once you have done this, you have created that benevolent context for your
Mhm.
success, right? So you need to be able to embrace that.
Yes. Yes. I just loved what you were talking about there, because this is something that every person has been programmed.
Mm,
I use whatever word you like. I just use that word, but they've been taught that, like you said, in schools and movies and everything else, that money equals bad. And if you've got money, it's equal bad. And that's simply not the case. And people, as you see the go-giver and you see the way that that can help transform lives and how it is, what you find is, yes, there are going to be some people that are just bad people, but there's
sure,
bad people everywhere in
of
that
course,
same.
absolutely.
And what you find is the people that have really been successful are creating that kind of value. Those people are out there, and they have figured this out, and it's so good that your book can show people in a highly relatable way, and then to hear you talk about it, because it just is so hard to get over. It's hard to get over for people.
Yeah, no, it really is because of the messages that we receive and that programming, that even that we're receiving, it's not as though it's being done consciously to keep us in a state of lack or anything. It's just what sells.
Yes.
It's a movie, it's a Wonderful Life, right? Where
Mhm.
where James Stewart's character George Bailey was gonna, travel the world, right? And build skyscrapers, and he was ambitious, but the evil capitalist banker, Mr.
Yeah.
Potter, right?
Yeah.
Just all he wanted to do was step on him and and rob the home the townsfolk and to that's what sells. It's the
Yeah.
tension that makes a movie happen and a book and a TV show and
Mhm.
it gets votes for politicians and it does all those things. So it's just the world as it is and
Yeah.
we accept the truth that that's how it is, but that doesn't mean we have to be stopped by it. It
Yes.
means we can take the unconscious and turn it into consciousness and now move forward with it. But when people say, well, this but focusing on the other person, isn't that unrealistic? Well, let me ask you this question. Do you think anybody buys from you because you have a quota to meet? No. People only buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. So when we say, for law number 3, the law of influence, about placing the other person's interests first, that's not about being self-sacrificial. It's not being about being a martyr. It's not about being a doormat, what have you.
Yeah.
No, it's understanding that, again, in a free market-based economy where no one's forced, they don't have to do
Yeah.
business with you, right? Uh, the only way they're going to do business with you is when you have been able to effectively communicate to them that it's in
Yeah.
their best interest to
Yeah.
do so. So you've got to place their interests before
Yeah.
your own.
Mhm. And a friend of mine, Don Williams, always talks about, he says, people want to buy. They want to buy. If you are the right person that, as you say, they know, like, and trust, it's not the fact that they don't want to pay the price. It's not that some other things. They just want to make sure that you are the right person with the right thing for them.
That's right.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Well, Bob, I sure appreciate you stopping by today. You got a busy schedule, and I appreciate you spending a few minutes with us today and sharing. I know you've got some things on your website. I will make sure we talk about that, because you on Burg.com, it's BURG.com. You got your daily impact
Mhm.
email. And yeah, go there and check that out. What else do you have going on besides that I want to make sure that everybody hears about?
Well, they can check where it says books, and they can get a free chapter of any of the books to see if they like
There you
any
go.
of them.
There you go.
And there's all sorts of goodies and information there. So we invite you to come to Burg.com, BURG, hang out and have some fun.
Yes, yes, and I will say to everyone, make sure you pick up the books, the whole series, get them all, and
Thank you.
and go through them because it's well worth it. And the stories just flow so easily. You read some business books that aren't written like you said in parable, don't read easy. These are well written, great stories, great message, and great process, as you said.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here today. We had Diane here, we got Karaga here, we had David here. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. We will be back again next week with the Faces of Business. Thanks so much, Bob, for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Damon.
All right.